So welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight, and today, of course, James Bartley is back, and we will have a look at the recent events at the Vatican concerning the paranormal. So, James, the Vatican has released stricter rules in terms of apparitions, paranormal in general. And when I went to the website of the Vatican and I read it, and this is just my personal impression, yeah, I'm not stating it as a fact, but I read it and then I thought, yeah, okay, so we admit that there are paranormal phenomena, but we also want to control the narrative. So meaning it's only a real event if we say so. So what was your reaction? What was your take when you heard that?
Well, it's part of a comprehensive whole. It's the circling of the wagons of all these institutions. Not too long ago, NASA said, oh, there are no aliens, right? And then a lot of the Christian fundamentalists, they're just saying that aliens are demons, right? There's
Mhm.
no real aliens and no real recovered alien technology. So that's another wagon that's being put in place, the circle of wagons. And, some time ago, I think it was 20 years ago by now, thereabouts, the Vatican made, or rather, cardinal or a bishop or one of those people in the Roman Catholic Church mentioned something about, well, if there are ETs, then maybe we can baptize them, right? So if you remember that. So this is
It was
this
Pope
latest
Francis.
development. What's that?
Pope Francis said that.
Yes, yes. That if the ETs do come, well, that's fine. We'll just baptize them and turn them into good Christians, or at least good Catholics anyway. So this is yeah, I can't help but see it as part of a comprehensive whole. There's still so many Catholics out there, right? Despite all the scandals and the priests conducting all the abuse, etc. There's still so many Catholics, so they have to reach that demographic. They have to control the narrative within that particular demographic. And also, not too long ago, if you remember, they've come out with a new mental disorder, at least in America, for someone who claims to see demons overshadowing another person. Well, that's a new mental disorder. So I think that was put in place, or at least that theme, that narrative was put in place because more and more people are seeing, normal people are seeing other people momentarily shapeshift into something else. And if you come from a Christian fundamentalist perspective, oh, that's a demon that they're shapeshifting into, or they're a demon possessed person. This thing with the Vatican now is, and we must remember, of course, the amount of secret archives they have, uh, their connection with high finance. High finance buys all information, all influence. They could find out anything they want about the UFO alien technology back engineering program with the amount of money they can dole out. I
Mm.
believe this is an effort on the part of the Vatican to gain control of the narrative, to mollify the concerns, and be able to put out a particular spin on the story going forward. They have to account for all these Catholics in the world. So, of course, at some point, they were going to make this kind of announcement. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, what baffled me with the statement by the Vatican was that they had observed that these claims, for instance, weeping statues and, relics that have the power to heal and claims like that. They said that now, because of the internet, this could hurt other people because it's going around the world very, very fast. And usually within the last 100 years, the local bishop would then decide, is it an event, is it a non-event? And that is no longer now the habit. There is what do they call it? The dicastery for the doctrine of faith must approve the local bishop's final decision and has the authority to intervene anytime. Okay, so, but if you have observed that the last 100 years, why do you react now?
I'd like to see the Vatican's archives about the Fatima event in Portugal,
Mm,
and many eyewitnesses there saw flying discs and flying saucers flying around, as well as holograms, perhaps, of the Virgin Mary, et cetera, et cetera. And that has been confirmed as a real miracle according to the standards of the Vatican. But they could start by opening the files about that. If they're really serious about that, and let us know what's in their archives about that event.
mm, yeah. Why now? I mean, does the Vatican know something that we don't? Is the gig up? And are they expecting, yeah, let's say, paranormal events in a bigger manner and are trying to make sure they can control the narrative? I don't know.
I
These are
think
just
that has
questions.
something. I think that has something to do with this, because if on the one hand they've created out of whole cloth a new mental disorder where people who claim to see demons possessing somebody, and then at the same time the Vatican is coming out with this, they want to be able to control the flow of the information, suppress certain things, cover up certain things, and put out a limited hangout on the other hand about, and it's not just UFOs and aliens like you mentioned earlier, it's like supernatural phenomena in general. And there are now probably more possessed people on Earth right now, perhaps than there's ever been. If one just takes a look at the level of psychopathy in society now, we're seeing hordes of these entity infested, malignly influenced people. So as time goes on, we will start to see a level of strangeness we've never seen before. So they still want to have credibility with the faithful. They
Mm.
still want to be an institution that people goes to not only to confess their sins, but, well, Father, what is that thing I just saw in the sky, right? They want to be able to control that narrative. And of course, their connection with high finance, their connection with the intelligence community, they're a critical cog of that. The Vatican has a well-developed, entrenched intelligence network, and it's been around for centuries, right? So they know where a lot of the skeletons are buried, as far as the paranormal and the phenomena out there. And I really do believe if they're serious, not just about releasing information about Fatima, but all this other supernatural stuff which they've been sitting on. Also, all the ancient manuscripts that they've collected and secreted away these years. What's in those? So they're trying to make it seem like it's a new thing. Well, if anything new comes along that's regarded as paranormal or supernatural, don't worry, we've got it. We've got it under control. Come to us for the answers, right? And we see a parallel with this with the military industrial complex that I said decades ago now that they're going to come out with a whole new uh, like August body of experts about aliens, UFOs, crash retrievals, et cetera, et cetera. And that's exactly what they've done. And those are the people now are controlling the narrative because they have the most airplay, they have the most interview time, they have the most shares and likes for people who don't really know much about the subject. Once again, they've neatly filled this void where we're authority figures or ex-authority figures. We know what's going on. We want to get it out to you, the public, but all across the board, the Vatican, the military industrial community, they will never, ever get close to releasing the deepest, darkest truths. That will never happen because that would undermine everything. And that was the whole purpose behind the Brookings Institute report about if the public became aware of the reality of alien life, and also the letter written by retired CIA, I think he passed away, Victor Marchetti, who wrote the book The CIA and the Cult of Secrecy, which was heavily redacted. I have a copy of it here somewhere. And he came out decades ago with a commentary, a paper about his thoughts on the UFO cover-up. And he said, based on everything he knew in the intelligence community, and he was a very high-ranking member of the CIA, he said, the subject of UFOs has all the hallmarks of a cover-up and has all the hallmarks of comprehensive disinformation, psychological warfare strategies applied to the alien UFO subject. And he said that another reason, at least at that time when he wrote this, why it was being covered up was the ruling elite may start to lose control of the institutions of religion. Religion was mentioned in the Brookings Institute report. It was also mentioned by Victor Marchetti and the people I just mentioned, that these institutions would be rendered meaningless if the truth of aliens and UFOs just suddenly came out. So I think this is an effort on the part of the Vatican to stay ahead of the curve, that if something were to break out, and I believe we're going to have a lot of these breakout type scenarios before too long, they want to reassure their flock that come to us, we have all the answers.
What do you mean by breakout?
Well, we're starting to see, like, unless proven otherwise, and I've said this in my commentaries, unless proven otherwise, I'm satisfied that what the eyewitnesses at the Miami Mall incident, what they saw is what they saw.
Yeah.
These aliens popping up through portals and chasing after people. Likewise, that family in Las Vegas said there were aliens in their backyard. From an alien abductee standpoint, that's not even unusual. Aliens come into your house; they're not just going to hang around in your backyard. So that also, as much as they try to debunk and marginalize that story, they've interviewed that kid lately who was, the one who phoned in the uh, report to the police that there's an alien in his backyard. He was traumatized by the whole experience. And then on top of that, this has happened many times in the past. Then he starts getting re-traumatized by all these trolls and skeptics and debunkers who try to make himself miserable. And the guy says he regrets ever going public with it and talking about it and calling the police about it, right? So that's what I mean by these breakout type. They've been going on all along, but now with the ready availability that people have of cameras and can videotape whatever is around them because of their digital phones, I believe we're going to see a lot more things. And then again, the Vatican wants to stay ahead of the curve. They want to be the go-to guys for the answer as far as the Catholics of the world are concerned. And that's quite a lot. I mean, and there are some highly influential Catholics, the Knights of Columbus, Knights of Malta, people like that, Opus Dei, very powerful, influential groups and figures that are part of the Vatican network. They have a vested interest in only allowing certain information out because certain types of information will tend to undermine their authority, and they don't want that.
Mm. Yeah, you already talked about this. That was in 2000. I don't know. Let me see. I have. Yeah, in 2014, he would baptize, Pope Francis said he would baptize aliens if they want to. And who are we to close the door? So why would they want to? I'm, I mean, let's say they come from a totally different galaxy. Isn't it logical that they have their own type of spirituality, if they have any? Yeah, I mean, we have no idea how all of this functions. So why in the world would they become a Catholic? I don't get it.
I guess to save their souls from the standpoint of the Vatican, right? Uh,
Hmm.
you look again. I mentioned Victor Marchetti earlier. Also, in the majestic documents, and I have no reason to doubt this, Father Cardinal Francis Spellman, if memory serves, that was his name. He was the highest ranking cardinal in America in the 1940s and 1950s. He was read into the secret UFO program, at least aspects of it. They wanted his input. And if you read some of these majestic documents, there's a lot of discussion about how the reality of the alien presence will potentially impact organized religion, right? So it doesn't surprise me that Cardinal Francis Spellman would be read into the project, at least some aspects of it, in order, from his perspective, to be able to come up with some guidelines, guiding principles about how to deal with this, because they had to plan for the contingency if, despite their best efforts at covering this up, if the aliens all across the board, different aliens all at once, let's say, decided to reveal themselves, how would they deal with that, right? Uh, and they had secret protocols with certain governments, even the USSR back in the Cold War days, Great Britain, certainly the allies like Great Britain, of what to do in case of an all-out alien invasion, right? And in fact, that was part of the reasoning behind the creation of the hotline between Khrushchev and Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, not only to slow things down if it looked like things were going to escalate to a nuclear war, but the primary reason that hotline was set up was because both the USSR and America were having these massive flyovers of UFOs and alien craft over sensitive facilities. And Kennedy pointed out in these discussions with Khrushchev, in so many words, we don't want this a misidentification of these alien craft to be the cause of setting off a nuclear war, right? And if one reads the the memoirs of Dean Acheson, right? He was a notorious member of the State Department before, and he talks in that book about there was a large flyover of unidentified craft coming down from the Arctic Circle from the North Pole, and he was with at the time the Secretary of Defense, Robert Lovett, who was a skull and bonesman, who was a very well connected, plugged in individual. And they were monitoring the reports from the Distant Early Warning Network and from uh, Air Defense Command about all these unidentified craft coming down from the Arctic Circle from the North Pole, basically. So there were concerns that it could be like a missile attack or something. So, you know, they have to have these contingencies, these what if this happens, that happens. And one of those contingencies, it would have to be an all-out alien invasion. Also, even in the SALT discussions, strategic arms limitation talks between uh, the U.S. and the USSR, as far as reducing the number of nuclear warheads and all these technical details related to the missile systems and what have you. There was something in there within the SALT treaties about I forget the exact wording of it, but something about like a technological incidents or technological devices causing problems, right? That may lead to an escalation, may lead to a nuclear war. I can't help but think that these technological um, emergencies may have to do with aliens and UFOs, because we've seen many times how these craft overfly sensitive facilities. Military fighter jets are scrambled after them. Sometimes they try to shoot down the alien craft. Sometimes the airplanes get destroyed or lost, or the crews turn up missing. The air crews, all of those things have happened. But we're fast reaching a point where they're losing control. They can't really control what these different alien groups want to do here. They may be in league and working with some, but I feel that they're the junior partner in this enterprise. So if these aliens wanted to up the ante and reveal themselves en masse, they're going to have a fallback plan. Otherwise, people will be just committing suicide and jumping off bridges and looting and pillaging
Why?
all across the board.
Why? Would you jump the bridge because of that?
Not me, not me. I'm not going to give the aliens that satisfaction, right?
Hmm. Yeah, but
I hope what I'm saying is making sense. I hope it's it's making sense to you what I'm saying. I'm just
yeah,
thinking out loud.
I'm not so sure that I do know that that is the general stance. The public is not ready for this. Yeah, well, maybe, but you yourselves, governments, intelligence community, the Vatican, the whole nine yards, all of you, you have worked on that, that there is confusion because on the one hand, at, you know, very pronounced since I would say the 60s. Yeah, with you have programmed the people with various TV shows and movies about aliens, and of course, it's always bad for us, the encounter. And on the other hand, you have spent a long time, you know, dubbing everyone who brings up the subject as a nut job, an insane person. And then in 2008, for instance, the Vatican's chief astronomer said there is no conflict between believing in God and aliens. So which one is it? Are we all nut jobs? Or is there something to it? Because if they say the public is not ready for it, I would say, and you laid the groundwork for that.
Yeah. Yes, by covering it up and by harassing credible eyewitnesses, ridiculing and making a laughingstock out of normal citizens who report encounters with ETs and have close flying saucer, etc. type sightings. They're the ones that created that, right? Now, I, for one, do I think the public is ready? I don't really care what the public think personally, right? There's many of us that know that the alien presence is here. It hasn't caused us to go off our rockers, right? So I think that to those who have a dogmatic acceptance of everything governments authority figures say and what they dictate, they'll probably have the most difficult time. They'll probably be the most fearful about this. And they're the ones most likely to seek comfort and security from authority figures or institutions like the Vatican, like the Catholic Church.
Hmm. Yeah. So I mean, this is this type of behavior is actually not. Yeah, I would say it's. Can you remember in 2016, the Vatican made Mary Magdalene a saint after calling her a prostitute for, I don't know, 1,400 years or something. I mean, guys, can you make up your mind?
They know that the attention span of the average, even the adult, let alone the young people, they know that the average attention span is so tiny. Their sense of awareness and uh, self-awareness is very limited. So we've seen in the recent past how the authority figures can say one thing one day and then, not too long afterwards, say something completely different that contradicts what they'd previously said. And
Mm.
these people will just roll with that, right? They'll just go along with that. Most people will go along with whatever to this day, whatever the authority figures say. I keep hearing about this great awakening, and everyone's waking up about everything. Look,
Mm-mm.
I'm a glass half full type person, right? But I'm not a fool either. I'm not a fool. So I'm looking around in society. I don't see too many people waking up.
No, me
If
not.
they're talking about maybe their social media friends list, that's something different. But as far as the rest of society, no, they're still chewing on their cud. They're still looking at their phones. They're still believing whatever they're told. And now they're hyping up, this new thing and this new threat and this new pandemic, et cetera, et cetera. When the time comes, most people are just going to roll over. So I personally don't see this great mass awakening that's going to, suddenly overthrow this tyrannical global system. I don't see that happening anytime soon. There are too many people that have uh, entrenched dogmatic beliefs, especially those in the military, and also those that are recently retired from the military. They still believe these patently bogus, demonstrably false narrative. They still believe them,
Yeah.
right? So they
Yeah.
know that they can traumatize people every which way.
Yeah. I would say that is a result of arrested development, meaning you have biologically grown up people, but mentally they're still children. And because of this arrested development, yes, they need to have a safety point, something to flee to,
Safe
something to,
space.
yeah. And Um, of course, as we have said many times, the memory doesn't serve them either, meaning they can't think from the wallpaper to the wall. They have forgotten what happened, let's say in 2020, 2021. It appears to be erased. Nobody wants to talk about it any longer. So, yeah. I'm not saying that here and there are pockets of people who wake up. Even if that entire microbe drama that we have seen in the early 20s, even if you understood that, that doesn't mean you understand the rest.
Yes. Very good point. We all have limitations in our understanding. You and I have limitations. There's only
Yes.
so many things we know, right? The problem, as you just alluded to, the way I see it, is that the people that only see like a small part of this or understand it, and they have their own preconceived biases, their own beliefs, their own dogmas and taboos that they consciously or unconsciously adhere to. You see, where the twain meets is supposedly the Vatican is a force for spiritual good, and by that token, it means that they fight evil, and they can point to some other exorcists and say these guys, they're going around, they're fighting primary evil. And I give credit where credit's due. Some of these exorcists, they really are battling evil forces. But it's again an example of we've got it under control, and how it connects with the fundamentalist belief system that there are no aliens, there's only demons, right? So if the Vatican spans the net wider and says, well, demons, aliens, they're all the same thing. We've got the answers for that. Don't worry. We've got it covered, right? And look in the recent past, NASA has come out and said we have no proof of aliens. So the same people, the surface level truthers, the same people who bore you to death about how everything NASA is fake. Oh, look, the moon landing is fake. Oh, look, the International Space Shuttle, everything is fake with NASA. The Earth is really flat, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. The same people who believe that can suddenly say, hey, NASA said there are no aliens. I believe NASA. They're such a credible authority figure. You see, there's a built-in contradiction there. A
Mm,
moment ago, these same people were saying that nothing out of NASA is real. It's all fake. And then they say, oh, aliens don't exist. We're so relieved. NASA has relieved us of all this anxiety and fear and trepidation.
mm,
See
yeah.
how they just roll with it, right? And look what they're doing to David Grush. They've tried to marginalize him, and there's even talk now of prosecuting him for alleged like breaches of, secrecy or whatever, right? You know,
Yeah, if
that's
there are
part of a
no
cover-up,
aliens, then you do not need to prosecute him.
right? And also this phony um, research committee put together by Congress. They're just a front for the military-industrial complex. Those people running that committee that are saying there is no proof of aliens, what have you, they're bought and paid for by the military-industrial complex. They're shills, right? But it reassures those people out there, the Alex Joneses of the world, people who follow him, right, that there are no aliens, they're just demons, which again neatly sidesteps the technology hardware aspect, all the alien technology that's been recovered, the liaisons that they've had with some of the survivors of these crashes, some of these alien survivors, who they've held some of them in custody for a while, and how they develop liaisons and alliances, if you will, with some of these ET races. So if they can keep everything really dumbed down to the there are no aliens, only demons level, which is what now it's clear to me that ultimately one of the big reasons they kept Alex Jones on a leash all that time was in these end times, so to speak, that he would tell all of his flock that there's no aliens, there's only demons, there's no alien bodies, no alien craft that's been recovered. They're circling the wagons, okay, all across the board. They're detracting and detuning from the reality of the alien presence, and the alien presence is responsible for this miasma of suffering that we see on this planet. Every weird, perverted abomination that we see that's being pushed in our faces, it has a non-human, largely an alien uh, backdrop to it, right?
Yeah. And what I find interesting on the subject of demons, if you look at what we call the Old Testament, there is not a lot of hype about demons. Yes, there are evil spirits, but then with the advent of the so-called New Testament, there is this introduction of demons, and apparently they are everywhere. And they can possess, meaning multiple demons can possess one person. And then we know the story that Jesus told them to go into a herd of pigs, and then they went down the cliff. So what is going on there? Where is this obsession all of a sudden with demons coming from?
Well, it fits into a preconceived bias.
Mhm.
People who have been previously indoctrinated into the belief. First of all, they bought into, that's the irony. They believe all the government lies all those years, all the academia lies about aliens, that they don't exist, that only crazy people see aliens, only crazy people see UFOs, right? And that's been going on for decades now, many, many decades. So you already had the authority figures marginalizing, debunking, covering up, and even resorting to harassment, intimidation, and outright murder to keep the reality of the alien presence under check. That's why they killed John F. Kennedy, because he was ready to come out with a basic truth that aliens were here on Earth, and he wanted to collaborate with the Soviets in that regard. That was the last straw for the intelligence community, the financial system, right? That was the real reason they bumped off John F. Kennedy. So by keeping, like I said, by keeping it to the demon level, there's nothing tangible, right? There's nothing you can sink your teeth into, because demons, they can be will o' the wisp. They're non-corporeal. They're non-tangible. They can influence people, animals, and things, and technology and machinery, but they don't have any corporeal form, right? So that neatly sidesteps all these issues of, recovered alien technology, alien bodies, all that stuff. Keep everything at the really dumbed down demon level. And what's interesting is I had Pierre Sabak on the show. I'm sure you're familiar with his work. When he goes back to the etymological roots of all these words,
Yeah.
they always have to do with celestial sailors, celestial vessels, shining ones, having specifically, when you track back to etymology, specifically referring to serpent beings, lizard beings, reptilians, over and over and over. So the very language is occulted and hidden from us, even though we see it all the time. Like he makes the point that the term Lord means he who is born from a ship, a vessel, vessel being a celestial vessel, like the solar bark of Ra, for example, just one of many examples, right? So that's where if you have Lord, he who comes from a vessel or a ship, a celestial vessel, Lord ship, worship,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
You have all these terms. It's embedded in the language, but you can't get these fundies to look in that direction because it starts to, tear apart at the seams. They're already fragile belief system, right? They
Yeah.
they will double down and insist even harder that there are no aliens, there are only demons. And that benefits the control system, which is what, to me, that's the irony. Uh, Hordes of Alex Jones followers are now pushing the there are no aliens, there's only demons meme, right? So, and what about all these beings that are subterranean? All these different types of species, all these civilizations down there, all these cryptids, right? What about them? Well, the fundamentalists have an answer for that too. Oh, Bigfoot, that's a Nephilim, or that's a demon, right? It's very They have a very narrow-minded focus, is the problem. Because to study and veer off in these other directions conflicts with their indoctrination, with their programming. They want to keep everyone down at that very basic fundy level,
Hmm.
is what they want to
I
do.
I think they all exist. Cryptids, aliens,
Yes,
demons. Yeah.
demons, yes, absolutely the real. Absolutely. They possess people, they possess homes, they possess places. Absolutely the real.
Yeah. Yeah. But here I have a another example that adds to the confusion. In 2016, Monsignor Corrado Balducci, he went on Italian national TV and said point blank, yes, extraterrestrial contact, that is real. Yeah.
I
So
remember that, yeah.
you see what I mean? There's always this, no, you're all nut jobs. Oh, no, it's real. No, you are nut jobs. No, it's real. No, you are crazy. Yeah, I can understand that a lot of people just simply stay out of the subject.
Yeah. There's a lot of fear around the subject because it's fearful for people because of the belief systems, their dogmas, and they feel for their security. If even one story, if the government came out and said, well, yes, there's been exactly one alien abduction that we documented, it's absolutely real. We've spoken to the person, we're satisfied this person was really abducted by aliens. That would terrify a lot of people. Little did they know that millions of people, millions and millions of people have been abducted by aliens, right? So this notion of a fake alien invasion, I always thought that was a canard. They've been here all along. They created this wretched system, right? We're just seeing the bitter fruit of it all. We're seeing the harvest, if you will. To use one of the fundamentalist terms, this alien harvest is how Linda Moulton Howe calls it, right? Strange harvest, rather.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And another one here in 2009, the Catholic Church had a conference on astrobiology.
Mm.
Yeah. And so then one father said, if we can consider some earth creatures as brothers, I guess he is referring to animals, yeah, then why can't we speak of brother alien? But okay, yeah, that is during the conference. It was probably not that public. But again, there must be a reason that they always put out controversial statements. You're insane. No, it's real. You're insane. No, it's real. So yeah, I
Concept of double-minded, right?
yeah.
It's an Orwellian concept of holding two seemingly conflicting concepts and ideas in your head simultaneously, but not suffering any undue emotional strain from it, right? Like, for example, Ronald Reagan, on several occasions, went public and talked about the reality of the alien presence and what would happen if Earth was, suddenly invaded with by aliens. And he talked to Gorbachev about this. He brought it up with Gorbachev about the alien presence. At the exact same time, the military industrial complex and the academic community were ridiculing and rubbishing the subject. Now, could that have been one of the reasons why Reagan, they tried to kill him, right? And also, the second, final term, he was barely functional, not as bad as Biden
So
is today.
yeah.
But I mean, Reagan was an old man by then, not in too good health, and probably filled with a cocktail of drugs. And he was known for falling asleep at these meetings and what have you. So they just put him out to pasture. They couldn't kill him with Hinckley Jr., so they just put him out to pasture. But it be as a direct result of his insistence on bringing up the subject of aliens, right? Which is a taboo
Mhm.
subject.
Yeah. Okay, this is a little detour, but it is a question that I really have with Biden. Is there nobody in the Democratic Party that could step in? I mean, they must know that they have no chance with Biden. I don't get it. Why is this?
That's the troubling thing, because I didn't mean to cut you off, but when it's almost like a subject that I've been reluctant to even ponder myself, right? Because I mean, look how late in the campaigning season it is. We're in the middle of the year. Usually we have primaries, we have all these other things going on to decide who's going to be the candidate. Well, the Republicans, their guy just got, indicted and prosecuted, right?
Mhm.
And the Democrats, why haven't they brought up another viable candidate? I thought that, Michael Obama would be the one that
Mhm.
they would push in front of us, and the possibility for that still exists, if you ask me. But we're so late in the campaign season. They so that makes me wonder: are they going to find a way to cancel the elections through some kind of state of emergency, or will they allow Trump to win as a pretext for an all-out uprising, Antifa style of the left, combined with all this the vast illegal immigration invasion and all this communist subterfuge going on all over the place, uh, or do they just steal the election again and just put brain dead Biden in there for supposedly another 4 years? That's a troubling question. It really is. There are no other viable candidates. But anyone who can still think semi-clearly knows that these demon rats are hell bent on destroying America and the world, right? So who's going to
Yeah.
vote them in?
Um, even what is his name again? Yeah, Bill Mayer. Yeah, yeah. And even he said in one of his shows that Biden is going to lose. And he always said, yeah, okay, Trump will run and then Biden will win again and da 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 da. Um, yeah, and now he said he's going to lose. Yeah, I don't know what is going on there. There have been speculations that Michelle Obama will step in August to avoid all the campaigning. We will see. All of this is just speculation. Yeah. Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? I don't know.
Well, by putting Michelle Obama in as the candidate that will get the black vote, that will get the LGBTQ vote, right? Still, that won't be enough.
Mm,
But if they can spin it out and say, well, Trump only won by cheating. So these crazy black congresswomen in America that openly, uh, back in the day, not too long ago, openly calling for attacks against Trump supporters and Republicans and MAGA supporters, right? Publicly saying that that's okay, go ahead and do it. If in this rigged system they allowed Trump to win by not stealing the election, he would be voted in a landslide like he was last time that they stole. Is
mm,
the idea to let him win the election as a pretext for a mass uprising from the so-called left, right? Because
mm.
a lot of the useful idiots in the left, they have a they have an expiration date. They have a used by date, right? Now, you hear people say, "Oh, look, things are coming apart for the left. They're eating their own. They're arresting, college students who are protesting about, what's happening in Gaza and, on behalf of the Palestinians." Most of those college students don't know the first thing about the Middle East conflict.
That's true.
They
They
don't
don't
know. They don't
even
know
know
about
what river, what sea.
they
Mm,
they don't even know what the issues are all about. They've
mm.
just been once again financed by Soros. And now, a lot of these protesters, college idiots, they're getting their, uh, you know, privilege card revoked now because they're being arrested. But it was a perfect pretext. You let all these illegal immigrants, and many of them Muslims, they've been radicalizing the college campuses for so long now. They're not going to shut. You would think that, okay, since so many protests are happening at all these colleges, why don't they simply close down the colleges? No, they're not going to do that. Colleges excrete countless deranged leftists year after year after year, right? What they're doing is the useful idiots that they conned into protesting, right? They're using that as a pretext for more censorship. Nowadays, anything critical about the mass slaughter going on in Gaza, that's hate speech now. That's terroristic talk now. That's uh, illegal now. And these useful idiot protesters made that possible, right? And like I said, they don't know the first thing of the Arab-Israeli conflict. They don't know anything about the origins of all that. This is just the latest fad. Where were they decades ago protesting on behalf of the Palestinians? They didn't exist. They weren't
Mm,
around, right?
yeah. I have seen one video clip where a journalist interviewed them, and not one could name the river and the sea. You know what they are always shouting from the river to the sea, and none of them knew what they were talking about. I mean, that is ridiculous.
Yes. And so it's not a case of the left, quote unquote, eating
Mm.
its own, because now they're arresting and they're censoring these college students. That's what they wanted. That's what they wanted. And what do these communists do, like the communist Chinese and the Soviets used to do when they completely take over a country? One of the first things they did was they got rid of a lot of the local communists. The reasoning being, yeah, look, we can't trust you. You stabbed your own country in the back, your own people in the back. Why should we trust you? Here's a bullet in the head. Thanks, but no thanks. Your services are no longer required, right? And that's what's happening now.
Yeah.
They're not eating their own. They were expendable. And I have no sympathy for them, none whatsoever, right? Now,
Yeah, and the same in Spain. There is a development now. They will fire thousands of government employees, and yeah, they will replace them with AI. And
is
that is
about right.
and that is what you get for supporting and serving the system. They will just dispose of you.
They're useful idiots. I mean, that's a term. I think it was Lenin himself came up with that term, a
Mm.
useful idiot. And now, I mean, I think it's hilarious now that in the inner city in America, they're complaining about, oh, all these immigrants, right? When all this time they've turned their back on these violent attacks against white people, against Asians, et cetera, et cetera. But suddenly, when a new protected species comes in, these immigrants, and they start messing around and causing trouble in their communities, right? Then they start screaming foul. They start complaining about it. Well, what are you complaining about? You people vote Democrat over and over and over. You keep electing these corrupt people to be your representatives, and they let your communities just turn into like complete chaos and mayhem and complete lawlessness. And you were fine with that. But
Yeah,
now
well,
someone else is getting the handouts and you don't like it. You see?
yeah, yeah. One very bad example is I find Portland. It used to be a beautiful city, really great city, and now, wow.
What these Luciferian leftists will do. They'll turn it into a complete hellhole. What we're seeing is the morphing into lawless places like Mogadishu and Haiti. We're seeing that now in America, large cities like Chicago and Philadelphia. They might as well be Haiti West or Haiti East.
So to wrap up our first hour, yesterday I read an article that Mr. Millet in Argentina, we know he is on this trip of privatize everything. Um, he's now going to abolish the schools. And Facebook and other tech companies are going to step in, and the children will be taught by AI and by Facebook. And well, some people say, yeah, you could say the CIA is taking over the education. And yeah. So what do you make of that? I think this is a very, very bad idea to leave the entire education to the tech companies.
And the tech companies are staffed and run by these Luciferian whack jobs, right?
Hmm.
All across the board. So many of them are whack jobs and entity infested. And AI is gradually, it's not even gradually anymore, taking over. How many times have we not just said things out loud, but just thought of things? Next thing you know, that there are very things you thought about start showing up in your news feed and in the sidebar of your email inbox. Right? Something like that just happened yesterday. Okay, so somebody in my presence used a certain word, and immediately my phone popped up with some kind of ad or something for the same word. So, and look what they've done. They've depersonalized it to such an extent. Before, people used to complain, oh yeah, I call up these customer center call centers. It's somebody from the Philippines answers, someone from India answers us because they were offshoring all those jobs, right? NAFTA and GATT and World Trade Agreement and all that stuff, right? And people didn't like that. But now look at it, right? Now they don't even have call centers in India and the Philippines anymore, a lot of places. Now you have to go to a chat bot on a website. And then they flummox people with these questions. Can you tell us what you need? I need this, I need this. Can you tell us what you need? This is the problem. I need this. Can you please answer? What do you need? Goodbye. Right? Happened to me. Right? I bought a product, it didn't work. Right? There's so many things nowadays. They don't send you a disc anymore like in the old days. You have to rely on a stupid key to input in order to download whatever software you paid for. And then you go to the site to wonder why it's not accepting the key that they gave you, and the chat box doesn't understand what you're saying, or it chooses not to understand. So it's depersonalized it to such an extent that you're getting frustrated and angry at AI chatbots now, right? And that's what they want to do. They want to make it so eventually you can't even talk to anyone anymore, a real person anymore. You just get some AI chatbot. So, and you talk about a country that was destroyed, well, practically overnight. Argentina used to be synonymous with, the notion of like wealthy, rich, fabulous lifestyle. The Argentinians were living high on the hog. And what happens? The IMF structural adjustment programs, is aptly called SAPs, they completely destroy the economy, which led directly to them in order to get the populace off their back, right? Because prices, everything going up, and hunger and everything else kicking in. The ruling military junta of Argentina, they go and invade the Falkland Islands, right? As a last resort, when things are so bad, let's distract our population who are after us. Now let's go invade the Falklands, so they're mad at the British now, right? So we could see on a grander scale to deflect what's going on domestically and all the chaos and upheaval that's being intentionally, and the breaking down of the food distribution system. Now they're wiping out all these chickens. Now they're wiping out all these cattle. Now the cattle, because they've been infected. So-called. What if this to distract you from that? They start up a whole new war, a whole bigger war. And that's what I worry about. I'm to the point now where, just waking up in the morning and the whole world hadn't been blown up while I was sleeping. I think that's a good thing. And you make it to the end of the day and you put your head down, and I'm thankful we made it another day, right? Without the world getting blown up. So what it's like nowadays.
Okay, so that is the public hour, and we will see the patrons on the other side.